So I have been playing Elden Ring for some time, and obviously I have my own likes and dislikes towards certain weapons. And then we have the bubbles. I made a poll the other day on which one you guys think is the best, and yeah, probably big balloons attracts more attention. And to confirm your choice, today I'm gonna rank every bubble in Elden Ring, which consists of the Claimant bubbles and the Envoy's bubbles. The Claimant bubbles are sorceries and the Envoy's bubbles are naturally from a unique weapon skill. So we're only gonna talk about those bubble stuff, not the weapon in general. In total, we have 5 types of bubbles, and to rank them, I beat the game a couple times using every single one of them bubbles. My opinion is based on how easy or hard to use them, how to get them, damage output, and honestly, I'm having a hard time ranking those bubbles, man, since they're actually quite good, depends on the situation. However, I'm gonna place the Envoy's longhorn at the lowest of number 5. Yes, we're starting off with the most liked weapon according to the poll. All the Envoy's weapon has the same build in this run and with the same 3 stats requirements, but since I'm only using the weapon skill, that means I can keep strength and dex to the bare minimum and only focus on building faith. The bubble itself deals holy damage and can be boosted by wearing the Envoy's crown and some faith related items. Speaking about weapon skill, it has a unique skill called the Bubble Shower, which does exactly like its name. I genuinely like this Ash of War and it really destroyed every big enemies in the game. I also didn't expect that this worked against Fire Giant as well. Small enemies like the invader NPCs are completely obliterated in no time since they tend to charge towards me right away. Looking for a specific timing is pretty easy on these guys as you can just spam the button. FP consumption is also surprisingly low, and the bubble shower also deals a lot of poise damage if enemy got hit by every single one of them. However, I think the Stone Barb Crystal tier doesn't affect the Ash of War, so my effort on killing the Putrid Avatar was in vain, but that's alright. As long as I found the right timing, every enemy can be taken down by this weapon, right? Not really. The weapon has some significant negative sides. As you can see, casting speed is slow as fuck, and that's really affected the entire fight since there isn't a way to make it faster, especially when fighting fast and aggressive enemies that keeps charging towards you. Also, I am forced to be stationary when casting the skill. That's a huge risk of getting hit. Casting speed is slightly faster than the Great Horn, however, those bubbles don't go too far and they spread quite widely, I would say. This makes me consider how far should I maintain my range or the bubbles ain't gonna hit them. A good example when fighting Gideon, he is the only exception of the human-like NPCs that can be taken down by the bubble shower. There were a few bosses that gave me a hard time like Radagon and Malekith for example, but the biggest issues I had was with the second phase Godfrey. It's just nearly impossible. They usually outspeed me to the point where I cannot even see my opening. This weapon has 4% drop rate by the Oracular Envoy wielding this weapon. It's not too bad, and it would easily become my favorite weapon if I could use the weapon normally and not only the Ash of War. We got the Envoy's Great Horn as for number 4. This weapon has 2% drop rate, which lower than the Longhorn, and because there are only 3 enemies that wields this weapon, and they are in far different locations, therefore it took me some time to get one. Okay, so let's talk about the good part of the Envoy's Great Horn. As you expected, big bubbles equals big damage, and yes, the damage from it is quite impactful if they manage to get hit, because big bubbles travels very slowly. But it's a good thing, since most enemies like Godfrey, Morgoth, and some other bosses tends to dodge right away after I cast a spell, and it consumes a very small FP portion. Talk about the efficiency. Small enemies might get knocked away upon hit, which is very convenient to stun lock them until they're dead. The Envoy's Great Horn takes a lot of advantage on having distance from bosses. Unlike the longhorn, it gave me the ultimate satisfaction at beating Gideon, because shooting the bubble from miles away actually made Gideon as pathetic as he usually is. Also, this weapon works surprisingly well against Malenia, but only on phase 1. As in phase 2, she becomes very aggressive and almost constantly close our distance, making it almost impossible for me to cast. And that's one of the bad things with the Envoy's greathorn. And we still have like a couple things to go. It's almost the same thing with longhorn where you cannot move at all upon casting, but here's the thing. I mean, because it's an Ash of War, so there isn't a way to fasten the casting speed, unfortunately. Now, the biggest problem of this weapon is the size. Yes, size does matter, because this thing actually blocked my vision whenever I cast. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it really affected me like in almost every situation, you know, especially when you have to maintain range to cast. It's making me more difficult to see what they're about to do in distance. And I'm actually doubled down on blinding myself with the Envoy's crown. But hey, it's necessary to put on to increase damage. But with Envoy's Great Horn, there are some bosses that I'm struggling to beat like Radagon and some others. If I tank them with more HP, I might be able to beat them, but I have to sacrifice some HP at the end of the day. Getting hit was inevitable. But you know what else is inevitable? Putting Oracle Bubble in number 3. No, listen. I'm genuinely conflicted because the Oracle Bubble and the Envoy's Horn are on the same level in my opinion. However, the reason I put it lower than the Envoy's Horn is because it already received multiple buffs on previous patch. But after using both of them this time, I'm more comfortable using the Envoy's Horn. Now let's get into details. First of all, getting this spell is easy. You just have to kill the Teardrop Scarab in Sea of Rare River. And the spell itself is hella good. You can almost beat every single boss out there. It can also be used in long range and also short range, so very versatile in different playstyle. So about a year ago, I made a video beating Elden Ring using all the claimant sorceries, and to this day, they actually received some significant updates, such as minimize the spread of those bubbles, increase damage of charge casting, which is something I didn't do too often. And the most important thing is, you can now cast this spell while walking. Oracle Bubble is a spell that has 2 stats requirements, Intelligence and Arcane. You can use Albinoric Staff that also scales with Arcane or probably Lusat Glintstone Staff to maximize damage. However, I prefer to shorten my casting speed, so I always pick Azure Glintstone Staff, combined with Radagon's Icon, so I don't have to worry about slow casting speed. But it's not that slow to begin with, and also with 70 intelligence, the damage is pretty decent. I think I just like using this spell, especially on Gutskin Duo and Malekith, where speed is pretty much needed in those situations. I genuinely enjoy using Oracle Bubble, and I feel I don't get punished by keep spam casting from long range, most of the time. Okay, so this spell doesn't really have any major downside after the update, but if I want to nitpick a little bit deeper, then there are some bosses that I'm struggling with, like Malenia and Gideon. I think a human-like or NPC invaders are the weakness of this spell. You can still hit them, but it's really hard to make them hit all the bubbles when you can barely predict which way they will dodge. Maintaining range is a little troublesome against these guys, and also, this spell consumes more FP than the Envoy's weapon. So you might not realize you're already running out of the blue bar. Okay, so I want to clarify about what I said just now. The Oracle Bubble actually consumes less FP than the Envoy's weapon. However, in my case, I'm using Azure Staff, which increases the FP cost of sorceries by 20%. So I hope that clears the confusion. Continue with the video. Number 2. Envoy's Horn. As I said before. Yeah, this is actually on the same level as the Oracle Bubble, and even the Ash of War is called the Oracular Bubble. Similar. For getting this spell, I need to kill a bunch of small Oracle Envoys in either Halictree or Leyndell with 2% drop. Pretty low, but there are a bunch of Oracle Envoys, so it's not gonna be as hard as the Great Horn. Still the same build as the Longhorn and Great Horn, the Envoy's Horn only create 1 bubble at a time. but you can spam it since the recovery time is very fast. Just like the spell, this weapon also works on almost every main boss in the game due to the slow velocity and the homing nature of the bubbles. But unlike the spell, it works against Malenia and Gideon. You just have to be patient. The damage also pretty good for a single bubble, and with that amount of damage, the FP consumption is by far the lowest out of all the Envoy's weapons. The efficient usage makes me forget to refill my FP sometimes. It is just that good. This is the easiest run I had out of the entire weapons and spells, and it's really effective against Morgoth and Godfrey since they are easily triggered upon casting. And this is also the safest weapon to take out the two Banished Knights and Nile in my opinion. But if this weapon is so good, why it's still on number 2? That's a good question, because my answer would be the damage output against Radagon and the Elden Beast. No, it's not impossible, but fighting against boss with 80 holy negations can be difficult. But if you are patient enough, then it's not gonna be a problem. I mean, no, there's gonna be a lot of problems, but you can overcome them. I think the same can be said with Malenia. It's difficult, for sure, but it's doable. Okay, at number 1, the Great Oracular Bubble. Not to be mistaken with the Great Horn's Ash of War, like, who the hell naming this, man? But yeah, it is number 1 because all the brand new patch that buffed this spell. Looking back at the video I made a year ago, this spell would definitely at the bottom of the list. But now that I'm able to beat the game pretty easily with only the big blue bubble, like I'm not even joking when I said it works against everything. From big enemies to small annoying ones. And it's also the easiest way to kill Malenia. To be able to cast while in motion is a massive game changer, and also not to mention how big the damage is. I think this one is on New Game Plus 3 and I'm on level 158 I guess. And the damage is still catching up, which is great. Alright, let's put aside how this spell performs in battle, but the sound effect though, chef kiss. You can feel the pain after the explosion, man. Getting these spells is also very easy, located in Sea of Ra River as well. Now y'all can see for yourself that the casting speed is slow, so how come this become number 1? The thing with the Great Oracular Bubble is, I think this spell was meant to be thrown from afar. The bubble goes slowly at first, but then the speed increases just a little bit. They travels quite far, and apparently you can boost the range with Arrow Reach Talisman as well, if you want to throw one from Limgrave straight to Altus Plateau. You can cast it in short range as well, however some bosses like Radagon might outspeed you on certain moves. Yeah, it's always Radagon, man. I guess my main point on using this spell is how crucial timing is. But unlike other spells, even with different timing, it can be more lenient when I'm having more casting speed. That's why I'm only picking things that increase my speed. Or maybe I should level up my decks as well, I don't know. But I'm already happy with the current result. And that's my tier list. It's personal and biased, of course. But if you have your own opinion or experience with those spells/weapons, feel free to let me know. And I want to thank you all for watching this video, especially the channel members. And yeah, gonna be uploading more before the DLC releases. You know, I want to see Mesmer and Mikla, I guess. So, yeah, alright. See ya, guys.